So I find myself in the bottom of a dry well. I look up and I can see daylight, but I don't know how to get out. I feel trapped. I can see the freedom, but I don't know what to do. So let me tell you my story. 14 years ago, I find myself in Australia, very broken man, depressed, not really knowing what to do. I'd seen a church. I keep driving past this church and I keep noticing it. And one Sunday morning, I leap out of bed and my wife, Julie, she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to church." You see, I used to be a Christian, and at this point I'm no longer walking with God. But I can remember the goodness of God. I can remember what it felt like to walk with God and to have his assurance on my life. So I decided I'm going back to see if God is still around, if God's still real, if he'll have me, if he'll talk to me. My wife just looked at me in desperation and put the duvet back over her head, and off I went. So I arrive at the church. I'm so broken, I'm depressed. I really don't know how to navigate life anymore. And I walk in and I sit at the back. And I didn't really on that day want to talk to anybody. I just needed to talk to God. I remember the service went on. I can't tell you what was said. But internally I'm dialoguing with God. And I'm saying, "Lord, I'm sorry. Will you have me back? I'm sorry. My life's a mess. I don't know what to do." Lots of crying, lots of tears. And then the service ended and everybody left and I got up to leave. But something was different. There was a hope. Where it felt like I walked into the church seeing in black and white, I walked out of the church and it was like now I could see in colour. And there was just this immense feeling of hope. Hope in what I have no idea. What had changed? Nothing really. But yet I had hope. I had hope in God. I had hope in life. And this started a journey in me and I started to seek him. I'm saying, "Lord, what's life about?" I've lived it for me. I think at this point I was 44 years old. I've lived it for me, Lord. And I've tried everything to make money so that I can have a bigger house and a bigger car and more holidays. But none of it's working. What's your will for my life? I hear people say God has a plan and a purpose for your life. What does that really mean? And what does it mean for me, Lord? And every day I would get up early. I'd set my alarm at 5 a.m. and I would just sit with God for an hour. I'd just pick somewhere, lay on the floor on my face, lay on the brown rug, or I would sit in a chair and I would just sit and talk to God like he was my friend. And every morning, I couldn't wait to do this. Every morning, it was like the most important thing in my life. And my prayer was the same every morning. "Lord, not my will, but your will be done." But what is your will, Lord? What does that look like? This happened for 9 months. Even in the day, if I had no work and I had a little business I'd bought that didn't really do much, I'd go and I would just pray for 8 hours in a day. I was so hungry and so grateful and so chasing after God and all that he had for me. And then one day, I don't know if I saw it or heard it, but I came across a statistic that one child dies every 15 seconds because they drink dirty water. It actually gripped me because I couldn't believe in this day and age that people were dying because they were drinking dirty water. I found it hard to believe that this was actually a real thing. So I started to do research and I'm looking round and I'm talking to all my friends. Does anybody know anything about clean water and how you give it? Does anybody know anything about Africa? I've never been. I've no idea if I go what to expect. So I did what most people do, the Google. And I came across a man who was going to Tanzania, who was giving people clean water, doing exactly the same thing that was on my heart. And I always remember we sent him an email. "Please, what you're doing, I need to come and see. I've got the same thing on my heart. It's something that's burning and I have no idea what I'm meant to do with this." And it was quite ironic. I got a line back I've just come back from the field and I really don't have time for people just tagging along. So there's a drilling course in Texas in an organisation. If you go and do that and get the certificate, then you can come. And I always remember looking at Julie saying, what do we do? How do we do this? So we emailed the organisation and they came back and said, we're fully booked for 18 months. And I remember turning to Julie and saying, I can't wait 18 months. I feel like I'm pregnant with something and I need to birth it and I really just can't wait. What do we do? And I remember going into my prayer room in the morning saying, Lord, you've put a burden on my heart. I can't wait 18 months. I can't just sit around. It's too real. You've really got to do something, Lord. You've got to help me. I think it was 2 or 3 days later, we got a reply from the organisation. They said, I don't know why I'm offering you this, but we have a cancellation. And we've never had anyone come from Australia, so that'd be quite cool. So would you like to take the spot? It's in 4 days. Julie, my wife, as she always would do, she's full of faith. She just said, we'll reply yes. Off we go. I remember thinking, how am I going to go to Texas in 4 days and do this? How does this work? I have no money. This is ridiculous. So we go down to the travel agent and we're looking for flights. And the lady, she says, we've got one flight for 2,600 and one flight for 2,800. And I'm sweating and I'm thinking, I don't have any money for any of them. What am I doing? And I made an excuse. I said, we'll just go have a cup of coffee and we'll decide which one we want to take. And we got outside and I looked at my wife. I said, we cannot do this, Julie, because if I spend the $2,600, we've got nothing left. And she looked at me and she said, do you believe God's leading you? And I went, well, I do. She says, why don't we give him a chance? Why don't we see what God will do? So we went back in and we booked the flight. I was still sweating. 3 days later, Julie rang me. I'm out at work. And she rang me, all excited. She said, you'll never guess what. I said, what's happening? She said, $2,600 has just gone into our bank. The exact amount that we'd just spent on the flight. And I remember saying, don't touch it, don't spend it, because we're not owed it. I don't know where it is, it's not our money. And she did some research and she did some digging around and found out that the government actually owed us some money for some child benefits from years ago, and we'd been overlooked and it had passed over us, and now it had caught up and we got paid it. It leaves you thinking, is that a coincidence or is that God? So I go to Texas, I do my course, I come back, then we email the guy who was going to Tanzania. I've got the certificate. Please, let me come and let me just see what you're doing. I have no idea, but I need to come. And I got one line. Meet me in Kilimanjaro Airport this day, this time. Crazy, right? But we decided, hey, we've got to go through with this thing. It's becoming so real. God is leading us in such a tangible way. So we booked the flight. And the same miracle happened again, where we didn't have any money. We didn't have the money to do it, but God kept, as we'd spend it, God would replenish it and would keep us going and would sustain us through everything. And this relationship with God was becoming more real every day.